Aloha, I'm Representative Kymberly Pine, and thank you for joining us for this month's Time with Kymberly Pine. Now, we have a wonderful show for you today, and we want to promote to you locally produced agriculture. And this is a new theme here at the state capitol, and something that has become very important to the many bills that I've been introducing. And I want to welcome our guests who are going to help talk about this subject, and that of course is Chef Alan Wong from Alan Wong's Restaurants, and Richard Ha, president of Hamakua Springs Country Farms, and Alan Joaquin, president of FarmRoof. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Aloha.
Well, I want to thank Chef Wong, who's really helped to share his passion and explain really why this is so important to increase our local food production by 10%. Chef Wong, why don't you explain how this came about and why you're promoting it through your restaurants?
Well, if everybody knows that we import over 85% of our food supply into Hawaii, and so there was this study done by the Department of Ag that said if we can increase that by 10%, so I'm going to say increasing local food consumption or purchases by 10%, because you could produce 10% more, but if it's not staying in Hawaii, it's not really serving the purpose. That if we can do that, we actually generate 2,300 jobs, $6 million in taxes. For the farmers, it means about $47 million. And into the economy, about $994 million. So we're kind of helping our own in this economy. You know, a lot of other things come into play besides trying to increase, you know, the food we grow by 10%. You know, what really is the definition of food security, or what is really the sustainable decisions that we need to make today for the future generations. So the reason, on another simple level, you know, if the food supply changes, our menu changes. So now we got to go look for other things and other alternatives. For example, last year we had the longest fishing ban for the bottom fish, 6 months. So when you cannot put opakapaka, onaga, or sea bass or the other bottom fish on your menu, then fishes like aquaculturally grown or aquaponically grown tilapia become more important. The farm-raised kampachi, moi become more important, so that what I want to do is make sure the guest tastes Hawaii. So before I go to the Pacific Northwest or to Australia, New Zealand, I want to see, you know, what do we grow here in Hawaii so that the guests can actually experience Hawaii.
And Richard, you are one of those farmers that are supplying all this wonderful food. Tell me about your farm. You have a mixture of farming from the land as well as aquaponics. Why have you switched to promote more aquaponics at your farm?
We started off growing bananas, and we were in just one commodity. And you know, it's a little bit dangerous to be in just one. So we diversified into hydroponics and started growing tomatoes. And now in the future, we want to diversify even more. So we're having other farmers come and grow food on our farm.
And I know that Chef Juan always promotes your farm, and he brags about some of the things. What is your favorite vegetable from his farm?
Richard's farm. Tomatoes, of course.
Tomatoes, of course. He always talks about your tomatoes.
Well, you know, Chef Alan is a big champion of all farmers. You know, that's what makes him really special. And you know, it's really something. When I first met him, and then we started to supply to Chef Alan, all of a sudden the responsibility shifted from our farm. We were then just making sure we put it on the docks and shipped it, and that's, you know, at that point that was our responsibility. But when it started to get into Chef Alan's restaurant, and then it started to be on the menu, holy smokes, we were responsible for it all the way. And that was good because our workers take more pride in it, and all of us. And he does it for all farmers.
And so he says this is not just a tomato, but this is Richard's tomatoes.
Well, that one was when we went to the farm. And we actually put on like a late lunch, early kind of a party, right?
Yeah.
All of his, you know, employees, the farm workers got to, we brought all the tomato dishes that we possibly could bring, and we brought a crew, and we fed his staff. And so now imagine people working on the farm, packing, or in the fields. That's all they see. So they finally saw the end product. So I think they were thinking, okay, we're going to pack Alan's tomatoes, or this is for Alan, right?
Yeah.
But for our staff, it wasn't just a tomato from Hamakua Springs. These were Richard's tomatoes. These were Richard's people's tomatoes. So it was a great event, and it had meaning for both sides of our staff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
And so, Alan, you've started a new project, and you're going to do something here at the state capitol very soon. Tell us about what you're doing. We hope. We hope so. We hope so.
Well, I'm, I guess, the next generation of farmers, you could say, and I'm looking to diversify the way that food is actually being grown. So you have in-ground production, hydroponics, aquaponics, and I'm diversifying to rooftops. So I founded FarmRoof. It actually launched on Earth Day last year, and our goal is to use wasted space in urban environments to grow nutritious and organic food.
Now, are you also trying to teach people who live in apartments and they just have a little ledge area? Is this something that they can do as well with some of the systems that you're using?
Well, it has to start somewhere. So the economy of scale starts kicking in when you progress the technology beyond the initial phase of idea. And so we've taken that idea, we've grown it to a point where it's commercially viable, but it hasn't hit the economy of scale to be viable on the residential level, but that will come in time. So as the technology progresses, as more and more people adopt rooftop farming, then the economy of scales kick in, and then it actually starts coming back to the actual community members. But that takes time, that takes support from lawmakers and from the community. So right now the idea is still very novel, and it's a very niche farming industry, the rooftop farming industry, but maybe in 10 years it'll be commonplace and people will be growing on their lanais and above their apartment buildings.
Now, what are the challenges? I'm sure that first you have to make sure a roofer checks it out and there's no problems with the roof. But you had talked earlier about different technology. What is that new technology that you have to use to farm on roofs?
The biggest challenge on growing anything on a rooftop is weight. And in the past, most roofs couldn't hold a traditional farm on the support structure that it had been built with. But our technology is much lighter. It weighs about the same weight as a solar water panel. And so now we could go into all these buildings that weren't designed to have a rooftop farm and actually grow food on it. So that's the biggest advance that we've made in the technology. Is we actually have a patent filed on our technology, is to be able to grow food on a very, very lightweight system, and that opens up the possibilities to use, like in Honolulu, Kaka'ako, and downtown Waikiki, we have 17 million square feet of flat roof. So all of which can actually do something like rooftop farming or solar PV or a combination.
So you just did a roof at AutoMart USA, and so how's that going?
It's going good. So we're a little bit past the 1 month mark. We were a little bit delayed in getting that project going. We planted the first seeds, and then we had a little bit of a construction delay, and then we kicked it back. So we're about a month and a half now into our crop. We're doing large leaf kale right now and doing test crops to see what works in that Kaka'ako district.
Great. Now, Richard, I'm sorry I had said that you do aquaponics, but you do hydroponics. Now, for our audience, what is the difference between those two different things?
Hydroponics is soilless media. And so what we do is we use coconut, shredded coconut. You know, coconut can float across the Pacific. So it lasts a long time, and it's sterile when we start. And we sometimes use cinder, because that's another media that's not a traditional soil.
So when you say you use the coconut and the cinder, so you don't use soil, you use that as if that was the soil, you plant the seed in there.
Yeah. And what that requires is real precise amount of fertilizer and amount of nutrients, and we time that according to, we have daily real-time monitoring, and we adjust it for seasonal differences, and then daily differences we adjust by hand.
And do the plants grow faster, or is it about the same as if it was in the soil?
I would say it's pretty much the same as it is in the soil, except for the nutrients are applied really precisely. So it's efficient that way, but everything's driven by the sun.
And so I think you've mentioned in one of your previous shows or through Chef Wong that it basically is more bug resistant or pest resistant if you do it that way?
Not necessarily pest resistant. It's the way we approach it. So we have to monitor it twice a week, every single plant, and then we apply what we need on an as needed basis, not just automatically. And our basic philosophy is to give the bad guys a hard time and take good care of the good guys. Yeah.
Now, Chef Ron, you would talk pretty much about the economics of buying locally, but also the taste is different. And you're one of the few chefs I've seen doing a cooking show or a cooking demonstration where you actually compare a local egg and a mainland egg, or a local tomato and a mainland tomato. And so tell us a little bit about how that works in your restaurant in terms of taste and the quality.
Well, you know, we do a side-by-side tasting once in a while. We do it every Farmer Series dinner, which we have every quarter. And so I think one of the first ones was we had a wedge of Richard's tomato, one from the North Shore here in Oahu, and one generic tomato from the supermarket. And the simple question was to the guest, which one do you like the best? You know, and there was no wrong or right answer, but hands down, everybody picked your tomato. Okay? Fast forward, a ground beef patty with no salt, just seasoned, from Kohibi Ranch from Ka'u, and a generic mainland ground beef patty. A simple question, which one do you like better? Hands down, the Kohibi Ranch one. So at this side-by-side tasting, we invited a bunch of chef friends, Foodland and Zippy's. And so guess what Foodland and Zippy's are selling now? Because they were convinced that when you do the side-by-side tasting, you can really tell the difference in taste. Whether it's tomatoes, ground beef, lettuce, goat cheese. We did water from various parts of the island. We did a happy lobster, angry lobster. The happy lobster is Joe Wilson out at Kona Cold at OTEC in Kona. You know, he puts them back in water and he feeds them and he makes them all happy again. The angry one is the one out of water for like a week in a box covered with kelp. And that one's a bit more acidic. The other one actually is very pleasant, kind of sweet. So it makes a big difference if you taste them side by side. Even coffee. If you try like Kona, Honaunau, and Ka'u, you can really taste the difference, you know. It's the terroir, it's the land, it's the weather. You know, terroir to me means taste the land or sense of place. So you get to see the sunlight, the soil, the rainfall, all of that into your product. There's a term called locavore. And some people like determine locavore by a certain mile radius around where you're at. So you could say, I'm only going to buy and serve food from a 50-mile radius. What's good about that is when it's close by, it's more fresh, it's supposed to taste better, it's more nutritious, and also the carbon footprint. You know, it doesn't have to be on a 747 coming from the West Coast to Hawaii. I think the time that it takes in the air is equivalent to like 5,500 cars on the road as far as carbon emissions. So, you know, you're doing something good for the environment as well. So, you know, besides all the reasons to support local farmers, local ag, it does taste better, it's more nutritious, it's better for everybody.
And so in addition to promoting this mission to eat more food locally that's raised locally, you're also promoting legislation here at the state capitol as well as an effort to save the bees in Hawaii. And what a lot of people don't know is the bees are very important to all of our crops. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Bees are responsible either directly or indirectly for 90% of the world's food supply. Directly if they pollinate cucumbers or fruits or vegetables. Indirectly if they're pollinating something that maybe the cattle might be eating. You know, Albert Einstein said if bees were to disappear, we have 7 years to live because they're so responsible for our food supply. So once again, if our food supply is changing, our menu is going to change. So, you know, our definition of sustainability is simple, to make decisions today so that our grandchildren's children can enjoy what we enjoy today tomorrow. So we're a small restaurant, we make purchasing decisions every day. We choose who we're going to buy from. But also, we also can put spotlight onto these subjects. So we chose to put the spotlight onto the plight of the bees. We never had the varroa mite or the small hive beetles. They've come into Hawaii now. I was just at the beehives on Saturday. Lifted up my hive at Paneiwa, you know, Iwichilo, and on the top, about 24 beetles. Couldn't believe it. And what that does, it destroys the colony, and then they have this thing called colony collapse disorder where the entire thing just shuts down and you don't get the production. And so the bill actually is to help support the fighting you know, to come up with a way to kind of combat the varroa mite and the small hive beetle, because, for example, Kauai, they don't have that yet. And one day, you know, it's going to end up in Kauai.
Without further ado, let's watch a story about your beehive, Adopt a Beehive program that we want to encourage everyone to do. So we'll take a look at what you're doing on the outer island on this issue.
You know, when I learned and found out that over 80% of the food supply is traced to bees, and if the bee population is in trouble, then I think we need more awareness, more education on the subject of bees, which I'm still learning, and I hope that the Farmer Series dinner will provide that venue to, you know, to get some publicity, get some media out on the subject, because what we don't want is to have the food supply stop.
Yeah, also the dependency on imports is reduced as we increase awareness and as we produce our own foods. Albert Einstein once stated how important honeybees were to human existence, is that without honeybees, the human race as we know it would end in 7 years.
I had heard about this on the mainland when I was up there one day, and it was called Adopt a Beehive for these same purposes, to help the bee population be sustainable, where on 1 acre there was 1 beehive, you paid some money to adopt it. And so I thought that if I can adopt a beehive in Cleveland, Ohio, well, maybe I can bring the idea back to Hawaii and maybe inspire some other people to go adopt a beehive in Hawaii and do the same here. Imagine if, like, we had 50 acres and 50 chefs adopted 1 acre each with 1 hive. And these students from the schools came to go work the hives, and whatever money they made by growing and selling the fruits, selling the honey, it you know, was a way to pay for their education. And maybe the chef gets a few bottles of honey too. You know, I think this is a model that can be duplicated. I think we need that, and I think it's the right decision to do. Creating value-added products from the honey, I think that is also a whole new ball game. I mean, I am already thinking about all the different things that I can do with the honey. I think I'm going to use honey more. I tasted like about 10 different kinds of honey. People don't understand that the different flowers or the different areas where they go and pollinate and create the honey, they have different characteristics and different flavors. For a lot of people, honey is just honey. That's not the case. I always enjoy first-time experiences. This is the first time I'm in this suit. This is the first time I was that close to a beehive. And you know, that was a cool thing. That's what life is all about for me. I think it's important for everyone, not just cooks and chefs and people in the business, but everyone, to go straight to the source. You know, when you talk about farm to table, I think you should actually go to the farm. It's always so grounding to, like, put your feet and your hands into the soil where you grow any products. And so this is another dimension to farm to table that is important for everyone to, like, reconnect with. You know, otherwise you get kids, when you ask, hey, where did honey come from? They're going to tell you, oh, it comes from Foodland. And when you go to the farm, you see how things are raised, how things are grown, how things are produced. It gives you a better appreciation for your food. I mean, you got to appreciate what you get today. You know, we're losing a little bit of that. We got to reconnect. Reconnect to the land, reconnect to the source, reconnect to the farm.
Well, thank you, Chef Wong, for helping to educate us about the importance of adopting a beehive. And so, Chef, how would someone go ahead and adopt a beehive if they want to help with this cause?
Can I say something else?
Yes, you can.
We were just there Saturday, and it was a very, very proud moment because we were able to give 3 kids, you know, we gave them each a $1,000 scholarship to continue their education, and they were given the check, and they all got up there and told everybody why this was important for them. It's been amazing for just the first year how much has been raised and how many actual hives that have been adopted. And so I got up there and I told everybody that I have a new dream. I said, you know, this Adopt a Beehive program is not new, but we can create the model now because we know what it's like. The model is that this is tied into a college, UH Hilo. It's tied into education. Dr. Lorna Tsutsumi, this is her program. She's teaching beekeeping so that the amateur beekeeper doesn't really know how to deal with the mites and the beetle. So she's teaching them how to do it the right way. And it's also tied into giving kids scholarships. So I don't think any other program is doing that. So this is a model that hopefully everybody can look at and emulate all over the world. Because the plight of the bees is actually a global issue. It's not just Hawaii.
Well, thank you for
And you can always
that.
go on to the website alanwalkins.com, and there's a section where it has Adopt a Beehive, and click onto that for more information.
Great. Thank you for doing that. And so, Alan, so what is your hopes and dreams for the future of roof farming?
Wow, that's a loaded question. My vision really is to decentralize the food system. Take all this land that's being wasted and use it to produce food for the people that are in that community. So instead of bringing food from faraway places on jets and planes and trains, grow it with what you have available. And using rooftops just makes a lot of sense. So my vision really is to see rooftop farming take off in the US as well as around the globe.
Are they doing it a lot in other areas in the United States?
It's starting to gain popularity. They've been toying around with it on the West Coast and in Oregon, in Seattle. Also, New York has about 4 rooftop farms. A little bit of activities going on in Europe, but it's still very much in its infancy. And the biggest restriction to growth in the past has been the weight issue. So we think we have a solution to that, and with that solution now in place, we could expand. So even though we're a Hawaii-based company, our vision is really global and to influence positive change. We operate on what we call the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. So if we could benefit the community, benefit the environment, and also stimulate the local economies, everybody wins.
Well, Richard, you also have a blog, ha ha ha. And so you've been promoting sustainability and growing food locally. Now, how has that kicked off in terms of from what you've done when you first started farming?
Well, well, first of all, I have to explain why it's called that. It stands for 3 generations of us. Ha ha ha.
It's pretty clever, bro.
Yeah, and so, we started several years ago, 5 years ago. I went to the Peak Oil Conference, and I realized what energy and oil has to do with food sustainability and energy sustainability. And so I write a lot about that, the interrelationship of it. And so we're trying to do whatever we can do to be positioned 5 years in the future. So, like on our farm, there was a time, in 2008 when the gasoline prices went up. Mm-hmm. And our workers were asking to borrow money to come to work. So, we started to think, gee, we had the farm was 100 workers. We needed to downsize so that they wouldn't have to travel so far. So what we did to transition was to work with area farmers and lease them land on our farm. So they're within the area. And what happened there was we started to get more variety of stuff, because, it became clear to me that as Alan says, decentralizing, that's going to be a good thing. So we realized that if people were going to depend on us for food, they'd starve to death, because we were only growing tomatoes and bananas then. So now we have all this variety, which is really good.
Wonderful.
And so, we're going into aquaponics as well.
Well, Chef, we have a few minutes left. Any last words?
Well, let me go back to the side-by-side tastings. Mm-hmm. I went to an elementary school, and I told the kids, you kids, we did the hamburger side-by-side tasting. So I said, you kids and your parents, you guys go shopping. Represent probably the largest segment of the population that can make a difference. Imagine if all you kids got together and dropped a line in the cafeteria manager's box that says, can you please buy more local ground beef for our hamburgers? I mean, they love hamburgers. You go home and you tell your parents, can we buy more local produce, mom and dad? Or, mom or dad, can we do a side-by-side tomato tasting at home and decide what kind of tomatoes we're going to buy, local or imported? So, we're a small restaurant. You know, every household that goes out to a supermarket can make that difference because it's choice.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us for this segment. We really have still a lot of work to do to reach our goal to consume 10% of our food. But with you folks all at the forefront, we know that it can happen. And I want to remind our viewers out there, why are we doing this? Well, as Chef Wong said, we want to be self-sufficient. And we want to enable ourselves to last longer than 10 days if a natural disaster does occur. And we have 95% of our beef imported right now, 67% fresh vegetables imported, 65% fresh fruits imported, 80% of milk imported. But you can do your part, as Chef Wong said, by buying local. And you will see in the supermarkets that it will say if it was raised in Hawaii or grown in Hawaii. And you can do your part by just trying to each time, just buying at least one product each time that you go to the store. And so I want to thank Alan Joaquin as well as Richard Ha and Chef Alan Wong for being with us today. And we look forward to supporting you in any way that we can here at the legislature. So mahalo for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you for joining us. We'll see you next time with Time with Kymberly Pine. Mahalo and aloha. Thank you.